You need a woman like me, Apache woman said to the cowboy that had saved her life. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to like the video and tells us in the comments where you are watching from. The storm didn't just arrive, it attacked. The sky turned black in minutes, the wind howled like something alive, and the sand cut through the air sharp enough to sting the skin. The cowboy had seen storms before, but this one felt different, dangerous, almost personal. He pulled his hat low and urged his horse forward, searching for shelter, any shelter, before it was too late. Then he saw her. At first, he thought it was just debris, something the storm had tossed across the desert. But as he got closer, his chest tightened. It was a woman. Barely moving. Half covered in sand, her body curled against the cold, like she had already given up fighting. He didn't hesitate. Jumping off his horse, he rushed toward her, dropping to his knees. Her skin was ice cold. Her breathing? Faint, too faint. For a second, he wondered if he was already too late. Hey, stay with me, he muttered, though he didn't even know if she could hear him. Her eyelids flickered slightly. That was enough. He quickly wrapped her in his coat, lifting her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, fragile, like life itself was slipping through his fingers. The wind fought him every step of the way as he struggled back onto his horse, pulling her close to keep her from falling. Don't die on me now, he said under his breath, gripping tighter. The ride back to his cabin felt endless. The storm didn't ease, it grew worse. But he pushed through it, driven by something he couldn't explain. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was loneliness. Or maybe it was fate. By the time he reached the cabin, his hands were numb and his body exhausted. But he didn't stop. He kicked the door open, rushed inside, and laid her near the fire. The flames crackled to life as he fed them more wood, desperate to bring warmth back into her frozen body. Hours passed. He stayed by her side the entire time, checking her breathing, keeping the fire alive, refusing to let her slip away. At one point, he poured a few drops of water onto her lips, watching carefully for any sign of life. Then, finally, she moved. Just a small movement, but enough to send a wave of relief through him. Her eyes opened slightly, unfocused at first, then slowly sharpening as they landed on him. There was fear in them. Confusion. And something else, strength. Her voice barely came out, dry and broken. You're safe, he said quietly. She studied him in silence, as if trying to understand why he was there, why he had helped. You could have left me, she whispered. He leaned back slightly, meeting her gaze without hesitation. Could've, he replied. But I don't leave people to die. There was a long pause. The storm still roared outside, but inside that small cabin, something had changed. Something quiet, something powerful. Her eyes didn't leave his. And even in her weakness, there was a fire in them that refused to fade. That was the moment he realized. Saving her might have been the easiest part. Understanding her? That would be the real storm. The night the outlaws came, the silence felt wrong. It wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet they had grown used to over the past few days. It was heavy, tense, like the air itself was holding its breath. The cowboy noticed it first. Years of living alone had sharpened his instincts, and right now, every part of him was on edge. He slowly set his cup down, eyes shifting toward the window. You hear that? He asked. The Apache woman didn't answer immediately. She was already listening. Then it came, faint at first, but unmistakable. Hoofbeats. More than one. Her expression hardened instantly. Not travelers, she said quietly. The cowboy stood up, moving toward the door. He didn't open it, just placed his hand on the wood, feeling the vibrations of approaching horses. His jaw tightened. Outlaws, he muttered. She was already on her feet, moving quickly but silently. No panic. No hesitation. She grabbed what little supplies they had and set them aside, then positioned herself near the window, peeking through a small gap. How many? He asked. 4, maybe 5, she replied. Armed. A brief silence passed between them, but it wasn't fear. It was understanding. They'll want shelter, he said. They'll take it, she corrected. That was all that needed to be said. The cowboy reached for his rifle, checking the chamber with steady hands. He had faced men like this before, desperate, reckless, dangerous. But this time, he wasn't alone. And somehow, that changed everything. A loud knock slammed against the door. "Open up," a rough voice shouted. "We know you're in there." Neither of them moved. Another bang, louder this time. "Last chance." The Apache woman glanced at him, her eyes sharp, calculating. "They won't wait long." He nodded slightly. "Then we don't give them time." The door burst open with a violent crack, wood splintering as the first outlaw forced his way inside. But he didn't get far. A shot rang out. The cowboy didn't miss. The man dropped instantly, and chaos erupted. The others rushed in, guns drawn, shouting, but they weren't prepared for what they walked into. Because she was already moving. Silent. Fast. Precise. While the cowboy held the front, she struck from the side, using the shadows to her advantage. One outlaw barely had time to turn before she disarmed him, sending his weapon crashing to the floor. Another fired blindly, missing completely as she slipped past him like smoke. "Behind you," the cowboy shouted. Too late. She had already handled it. Within moments, the fight turned. The outlaws, confident just seconds ago, were now stumbling, retreating, realizing they had made a terrible mistake. "Fall back," one of them yelled. And just like that, they were gone, disappearing into the night as quickly as they had come. Silence returned. But it wasn't the same silence as before. The cowboy lowered his rifle slowly, his breathing steady but his mind racing. He turned to look at her, and for the first time, he truly saw her. Not as someone he had rescued. But as someone who didn't need saving. "You've done this before," he said quietly. She didn't look at him right away. Instead, she stared at the broken door, the fading footprints outside. "Too many times," she replied. He stepped closer, still holding the rifle loosely in his hand. "You could have run," he said. "Left when things got bad." Now she looked at him. Her gaze was calm, unshaken. "I don't run," she said. "Not anymore." A long pause followed. Then, slowly, a small, knowing smile touched her lips. "That's why," she added softly, "you need a woman like me." This time, the cowboy didn't laugh. Because now, he believed her. Spring didn't arrive all at once, it crept in quietly. The snow began to melt, the rivers slowly came back to life, and the cold air softened just enough to remind them that winter wouldn't last forever. But inside the cabin, something else was changing too, something neither of them wanted to face. Distance. Not the kind you could measure in miles, but the kind that grows between two people when one of them knows they can't stay. The cowboy noticed it in the little things. The way she stood outside longer than usual, staring toward the horizon. The way her silence felt different now, not peaceful, but heavy. Like her thoughts were somewhere far away. "You're thinking about leaving," he said one evening. She didn't deny it. Instead, she kept her eyes on the fire, watching the flames flicker like they held the answers. "I'm thinking about where I belong," she replied quietly. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "And that's not here?" She hesitated. That hesitation said everything. "I don't know," she admitted. "But my people. I don't know if they're alive, if they're safe. I can't just forget them." He nodded slowly. He understood more than he wanted to. "Family doesn't let you forget," he said. She looked at him then, a faint sadness in her eyes. "And what about you? Don't you have anyone?" He gave a small, almost bitter smile. "Not anymore." The words hung in the air between them. For a moment, it felt like they were standing on opposite sides of something neither of them could cross. "You saved me," she said softly. "You gave me a second chance." "You don't owe me anything," he replied quickly. "That's not what this is," she said, shaking her head. "It's not about owing, It's about choosing what matters. Her words hit deeper than he expected. Because he knew what she was really saying. And he wasn't sure he was ready to hear it. The next morning came too soon. The sky was clear, the air fresh, perfect for a journey. He stepped outside to find her already preparing the horse, her movements calm but deliberate. No hesitation this time. It was real. She was leaving. He walked over without a word and checked the saddle, tightening the straps, adjusting the gear, anything to keep his hands busy. "You don't have to do that," she said gently. "I know," he replied. "I want to." Silence settled between them again, but this time, it was heavier than ever. When everything was ready, she turned to face him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she stepped closer. "You changed my life," she said. "More than you think." He swallowed, forcing a small nod. "You did the same." Her eyes searched his face, like she was trying to memorize it, or maybe trying to find a reason to stay. "Come with me," she said suddenly. The words caught him off guard. "What?" "Come with me," she repeated. "You don't belong here any more than I do." He looked past her, toward the open land, then back at the cabin behind him. This place had been his world for so long, his escape, his silence. "I can't," he said quietly. A flicker of disappointment crossed her face, but she hid it quickly. "Then I have to go," she said. He nodded, even though it felt like something inside him was breaking apart. She mounted the horse, gripping the reins, but she didn't move right away. Instead, she looked down at him one last time. "You still need a woman like me," she said, her voice softer. The days after she left felt longer than they should have. The cabin was the same, the fire still burned, the wind still whispered through the cracks, but something was missing. Something important. The cowboy tried to ignore it at first, burying himself in work, fixing fences that didn't need fixing, riding farther than usual just to avoid the silence waiting for him at home. But no matter how far he went, it followed him. Her voice. Her presence. The way she understood him without needing words. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of gold, he found himself standing outside the cabin, staring at the horizon. The same horizon she had disappeared into. He exhaled slowly, shaking his head. "You let her go," he muttered to himself. And for the first time, it felt like a mistake. Just as he turned to go back inside, he heard it. Hoofbeats. Faint at first, then clearer. His heart skipped. He turned around slowly, almost afraid that his mind was playing tricks on him. But it wasn't. It was her. Riding straight toward him. For a moment, he couldn't move. Couldn't think. All he could do was watch as she came closer, the wind catching her hair, her eyes locked onto his like she had never truly left. She stopped just a few steps away. Silence fell between them, but this time, it wasn't heavy. It was alive. "You came back," he said, his voice quieter than he expected. "I told you," she replied softly, stepping down from the horse. "I had to find where I belong." He swallowed. "And, did you?" She walked closer, stopping right in front of him. "Yes," she said. A pause. Then she placed her hand gently over his. And it wasn't a place. His chest tightened slightly. Then what was it? She held his gaze, her eyes steady, full of something deeper now, certainty. It was a person. The words hit him harder than any storm ever could. For a second, he didn't know what to say. "What about your people?" he finally asked. "They're safe," she replied. "I found them, but I also found myself." He nodded slowly, trying to take it all in. "And you chose to come back here?" She smiled faintly, shaking her head. "No," she said. His expression shifted slightly. "I chose you." The wind passed between them, softer now, warmer, like even the world around them had changed. He looked at her for a long moment, then let out a quiet breath, something inside him finally settling. "You once said I need a woman like you," he said. She tilted her head slightly. "I remember." He took a small step closer. "I don't need you," he said gently. For a brief second, her expression flickered. Then he continued. "I choose you too." That was all it took. A real smile spread across her face, warm, genuine, the kind that reached her eyes. And this time, neither of them looked at the horizon. Neither of them thought about leaving. Because for the first time, they both understood something simple, but powerful. Home isn't where you run to. It's who you stay for.